Hey guys, this is Charles Yeager with Metal. In this overview tutorial, we're going to be looking at Mantra VR for After Effects. Mantra VR is a comprehensive set of stylization effects for both traditional flat footage and 360 footage. You can see some of the amazing videos other creators have made using Mantra VR. We're going to look at how we can use some of the effects from Mantra VR on some 360 and flat footage. I also want to mention before we get started that you can download a free trial of Mantra VR from metal.com. All right, let's go ahead and get started in After Effects. All right, now that we're inside of After Effects, I've got a few different compositions down here of both 360 and flat footage. And let's start out with this 360 equirectangular footage here. You can see I've got this aerial shot of these mountains. And let's go ahead and apply one of the most popular effects from Mantra VR, and that's going to be the Hyperbolic Effect. So with my footage selected, I'm going to come here to Effect. We're going to come down here to Metal, and we're going to select the Mantra VR Hyperbolic Effect. Immediately, we're going to see a very abstract looking result. And what's nice about this is seamless again because it is 360. If we come over here to the effects controls, we're going to see we have a lot of different options here that are keyframeable and we can adjust. And you'll see the first one is frame layout. Again, we are working with monoscopic footage, but if you need to change this to stereoscopic 360 footage of either over under or side by side, you can do that here. And we also have that rectilinear flat option we're going to look at in just a moment. So now we have the hyperbolic tiles, and you can see you can come down here and select between different options and really get some nice looking results. I'm going to go back to this kaleidoscope effect here, probably on the, I'm going to use this kaleidoscope 4 effect. I like the result that gives. You can see as I zoom in here, you can really see how this looks. And what's nice, again, the footage is going to be moving. So if we go ahead and just kind of scroll through this, we can see how it's kind of changing over time, giving us that kaleidoscope result. It often reminds me a lot of kind of the Doctor Strange visual effects from the Doctor Strange Marvel movie. And if we want to get a better feel of how this looks in 360, we can also open up the Metal Globe preview, which is also included with Mantra VR. And to do that, just come up here to Window. We're going to go to Extensions, and we're going to select the Metal Globe preview. And this little dockable panel here, I'm going to go ahead and move this over so we can see the entire sphere. And you'll see it's going to update to our composition. And I can look around on this globe preview and I can select different sides of it. You can see just like a box laid out there. You can select different sides and it'll automatically rotate to that side. And we have other options like grids, and you can change the layout too to match your footage. Another secret I like to mention is if you hit the tilde key, which is usually in the top left-hand side of your keyboard underneath the escape button, when I hit that, you're going to see we're going to go to a full screen mode. And we can also double click on this sphere to jump inside of it. And now we can kind of look at this in a 360 view. So it gives you a much better idea of what we're looking at when you can see it in 360 like this. And you can see how abstract these patterns are, and it is seamless. And I can just double click to come back outside of the sphere if I want to. And I'm going to hit the tilde key again. That'll minimize that back down here to that panel. When you do launch the Metal Globe preview, if it isn't updating, just come over here and go to Edit. Come down here to your Preferences. And I believe if you go to Video Preview, it's going to open up this panel here, and you're going to see, make sure you enable Mercury Transmit, and then you can check on Metal Globe Preview. So now we can see again how that looks in 360, and we have other options here like zoom and rotate around the point of interest. And all of these again are keyframeable, so you can see just how abstract we can make this look with our footage. And any footage you use obviously going to give you much different results. So you can definitely do a lot of experimentation with this, as you can see over here. So I'm just going to do a quick RAM preview of this. We'll see how this looks with the footage. And now we can see just how abstract that looks and the way it's changing just based off the footage itself. It almost kind of looks like an eye right there. So that's kind of cool. Now let's jump over to some other footage here, some flat footage. And we can see how we can use the same effect on that. So what I'm going to do is select that footage. And what this is an aerial shot of some nice colorful fall leaves. And I find that footage that has like a lot of little details in it and a lot of different colors works really well when you're using the Hyperbolic Effect. So, and again, because this is moving so much too, there's going to be a lot of stuff changing without us having to keyframe anything. So I'm going to select that footage. We're going to come up here to Effect, come down here to Metal, and again, select the Hyperbolic Effect. And when we first apply it, it's going to act like it's actually applying it to monoscopic footage. And all we need to do is just change this to be rectilinear flat. And now we're going to see some flat results. And I'm going to change this here to be one of these other kaleidoscopes. So you can see really how abstract that looks. And as I just kind of scroll through here, we can get the result of that. Almost kind of looks like fire now just because of how bright orange the leaves are. And you can see how this is just changing over time. And that's without any keyframes. That's just based on the actual footage. So you can really get some nice kind of trippy results. Oh, wow, look at this one. And again, we can move around the points of interest here. You can see with that, if we need to kind of rotate this around, I'm going to undo that. One setting I really like is rotating around the point of interest. So you can see we can add some additional rotation here. So I'm going to move this down. I'm going to do a keyframe for that rotation around point of interest. We'll just move down here a little bit in time and just kind of give this some rotation. I'm going to do a quick RAM preview of this shot. And now we can see what that looks like as a final result. Almost kind of gives it a little bit of a 3D appearance there, the way everything's kind of blending together. And what's also nice is we have this interpolate option here, so it's currently set to 100, so we're basically getting the full extent of the hyperbolic effect. And then we can actually keyframe this, and you can pull this down, and you can see it's eventually going to blend right back into the original footage. So you can do some cool transitional elements with things like that. We also have an opacity option here if we want to set this as a blending mode back on top of our original footage. You can see we kind of get a dual effect there with that. I'm going to set this on the screen. That'll be a little bit easier. So it's almost like a double exposure effect with the hyperbolics on top of the original footage. And we can adjust again the opacity of that there if we want to dial that down or up. I'm going to set this back on to normal. Now let's jump back over to the 360 shot. And I want to show you another effect from Mantra VR that kind of plays well with the hyperbolics effect, and that's going to be the repeater effect. So with my footage selected here, I'm going to come here to Effect, come down here to Metal, and under Mantra VR, we're going to select the repeater. And you can see we can repeat this on the X and Y axis, and again, this will be seamless. So you can see as I increase this, we're kind of increasing that hyperbolic pattern, and we can do it again in both directions, so you can kind of see what we've created here. If we come over here to the Metal Glow preview, let's go ahead and hit the tilde key and just double click and look inside of this. So you can see we've kind of created now like an orb of all these different hyperbolic effects. And this is seamless. And we can continue to adjust that here with the repeat values. And we have a few different options here on how we want this to repeat. If we want it to mirror, we can check those on and off. And we can also have a repeat from the top or from the bottom. You'll see how it kind of creates this pattern here. You'll see how it does it just based on one side or another, depending on if you have this selected on top, bottom, or both. And it can be a really cool way to create different textures if you need an abstract texture, or if you want to apply another effect on top of this and kind of blend them together. You can kind of create your own spherical textures, again, with this repeating pattern. And it works in much the same way on flat footage. So if I have this pattern here and I really like how that looked, I'll come up here to Effect, Metal, and then we'll select the repeater. And we can select now for this to be rectilinear. And you can see we can repeat that pattern here. And you can see how it kind of stretches and pulls to kind of maintain and keep that seamless. So that's pretty unique. You can now see how this looks. And now you can see we've almost created like a 70s psychedelic background with the repeater effect there on the hyperbolics effect. So it's pretty unique. All right, so let's jump over to another 360 shot and let's explore the Escher-Droste effect and kind of create an infinite like zoom. So you can see we've got this shot of the riverfront here and we're looking down kind of at this bridge. And this is going to be a cool shot we can kind of zoom into with the Escher-Droste effect from Mantra VR. So with my footage selected, I'm going to come over to Effect. We're going to come down here to Metal, and we're going to select the Escher-Droste effect. And immediately you're going to see we have kind of this infinite looking swirl happening on our footage. And sometimes it can be a little difficult to see exactly what's going on, but we have the zoom factor and the zoom cutoff, and we can adjust those to really get a better feel. So now you can see kind of how I've adjusted the zoom factor. And then again with the cutoff here, so it's almost like we're going down a tunnel. And what's really going to sell this is going to be the zoom loop. So you can see as I go ahead and scroll through this, again, it's like we're zooming and looping through this scene. And you can do this infinitely. Now let's go ahead and look at this in 360, jump back into the sphere so you can kind of see what that looks like, how that pattern is repeating. To kind of give a cool effect. And again, we can always interpolate with this as well. So you can see I can go ahead and adjust that from 100 back into the original shot. So you can see it's a nice way to emulate different effects, like if you had something going on in a 360 video and you needed to go abstract and then kind of come back into reality. It's a nice way of doing that with interpolate. Again, we have these feather options here and the twist option, so I can check that on. So now we're just dealing with spheres. You can see how this is going to kind of zoom through that. And then we have the feathering we can adjust. I really like checking out the feather mode. And right now it's on cross dissolve, so it's just kind of fading them together. But if we change this to be interpolation, it's going to kind of blend together between each of those kind of ripples essentially. So it's going to kind of repeat that pattern. So you can see it kind of creates almost more of a uniform looking zoom for that infinite zoom. So it's kind of making the same pattern there, the way it's kind of reflecting itself. And you can see you can continue to just kind of zoom in infinitely for that. So it'd be a nice way to create kind of a scrolling background in a sense for your 360 shot with something like this. And then when you need to bring it back to reality, just again, adjust the interpolate right here from 100 back down to 0. Let's take a look at some regular footage we could use this on. So you can see I've got this aerial shot above these clouds and just kind of slow moving. And if I want to create kind of almost like a cloudy zoom, infinite zoom with this, I'm going to select my footage. We'll come here to Effect, come down here to Metal, and we're going to select the Escher-Droste effect for this. And again, the first thing we need to do is change this to be rectilinear flat. And on this particular shot, I'm actually going to change the twist. I'm going to turn that off. And I'm going to adjust this zoom factor here a little bit just so we're kind of focused on mainly the clouds. And I may need to adjust the zoom cutoff as well. Now you can kind of see what we've got here, just primarily the clouds we're looking at. And I'm going to adjust the feather here. I'm going to increase that quite a bit so those really blend together. So now we're pretty much just seeing the clouds. And then we can do the zoom loop here. So it's like we're just zooming through those clouds in this shot. And again, obviously I would just adjust the interpolate here, keyframe that and bring it down really quickly. So it's kind of like we're zooming through hyperspace now back into the original shot. So again, nice way to create abstract transitions from one shot to another with your flat footage. And you can see just with this shot, if we just wanted to isolate those clouds, in this case, we can use those again to create that kind of infinite zoom seamlessly. Let's take a look at another 360 scene here to look at the Meridian Waves effect. So now I've got this kind of abstract space scene in 360. We'll jump into this and just kind of look around. You can see I've just got this orb, and we have this star map in the background, and then some kind of abstract auras here that were created with metal flux. And if we want to add kind of like an energy field or almost like an underwater fill, the Meridian Waves effect is a nice way to do that from Mantra VR. So I'm going to select my footage, come over to Effect, come down here to Metal, and we're going to select the Meridian Waves effect. You'll see right off the bat we kind of get this wavy, watery look on our footage, and we can adjust the orientation here. You can kind of see how it's kind of rippling through everything. And this kind of looks like a space, like energy field almost. And we can adjust the wavelength of everything here and the phase just to add more kind of secondary movement, which is very important when you're trying to sell these looks. And again, we have the amplitude as well if you really want to distort that. And we can jump back over here to the globe preview and dive into that. And we can kind of take a look at how this looks inside of there. Something that's really nice about the Meridian Waves effect is we have the distribution option controls down here at the bottom. And we can go ahead and increase the number of instances here. And it's basically going to duplicate the effect on itself. You can see when we do that, we get some really nice abstract looking results. The way it's kind of stacking the effect together. And we can kind of adjust that here. You can see rotating around the point of interest for some really abstract looking, again, water, almost like effects with this. If we jump over to some flat footage, what I've got here is just kind of some waves that are created with fractal noise and a tint effect. You can see it kind of looks just like a little bit of small water waves kind of moving here. And if we wanted to give this a little bit more of a water type texture, we can use the Meridian Waves effect on flat footage to do that. So with this selected, I'm going to come over to Effect, come over here to Metal, and we're going to select Meridian Waves. And then I'm just going to change this to be rectilinear. And now we're kind of getting that wavy look, and I can adjust kind of the point of interest, maybe move that a little off center. This could be a nice way again to create like a quick background for something. And you can see all the wavelengths affecting that. I really like adjusting the phase here, so you could keyframe this. And I'll go ahead and do that really quickly here. So I'll just add a keyframe for the phase, move down here in time, and just go ahead and increase this something like 2. And we'll do a quick RAM preview of this. So now you can see how we've created a nice water type background using Meridian Waves effect on traditional footage. Another popular effect from Mantra VR is going to be the chrome spheres effect. So again, we're back on some 360 footage here. With my footage selected, come over to Effect, come down here to Metal, and we're going to select the Mantra VR chrome spheres effect. And right off the bat, we're going to see a chrome sphere has been added into our scene. And it's a little difficult to see here. You can see how it's reflecting around the edges there. So it's almost like having another miniature 360 video inside of your 360 footage. And we can adjust the scale of the sphere here. You can see if we need that to be bigger or smaller. But what's really nice about the chrome spheres effect is we have these distribution controls again down here. So I toggle that down, I increase the number of chrome spheres. You're gonna see I'm increasing more and more into the scene, but you'll also notice that they're reflecting off of each other, which is really neat. And that kind of adds a secondary dimension to this effect. So you can see all the other spheres reflected in each other. And we can control how many times they're gonna reflect off each other with the recursion level here. So right now it's just set to 1. So all of them just kind of reflect once. But if I increase this to something like 3, you can see how many times over it's gonna repeat that pattern kind of in the reflections there. I can dial it back to 2. I'm gonna set it back to 1. And something else we can do is we can isolate the spheres from the background. So I can go ahead and uncheck that. So we've kind of isolated those spheres. If we wanted to add these into another shot or another scene, and we just want to kind of use that footage as a reflection map on the spheres. Now I'll show you something that I like to do. I'm actually going to select the footage there. I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate it. And on this bottom copy, I'm going to delete the Mantra VR Chrome Spheres effect. And we're just going to use the actual chrome spheres that are on top of this footage. But on that bottom copy, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to select Effect. And we're going to find the Immersive Video Effects. And we're just going to use a VR blur. And so then I can increase the blurriness. Now it's kind of like we're blurring out that background. We're just focusing on the chrome spheres that are closer to the scene here, you can see. And we can rotate those around and move them with the point of interest here. So if we dive into the Metal Globe preview, we can take a look at this and look around. Now we can see the spheres. Almost kind of gives us a claustrophobic type feel, like they're really close upon us. And we're just focusing on these spheres right in front of our face. Now there's some really unique use cases for the chrome spheres effect on traditional flat footage. As you can see here in this shot, I'm using them to kind of emulate water droplets on the camera lens. And you can see if I zoom in here how they reflect the background footage on the chrome sphere and kind of gives it kind of a curve. Again, giving it that water droplet kind of emulated effect. So there's lots of cool use cases you can use with the chrome spheres effect on flat footage as well. Finally, let's take a look at using the turbulence effect, which is kind of like a paint smeary effect, very Van Gogh-like appearance on 360 and flat footage. So I've got some 360 footage here, and there's a little bit of movement to it. It's kind of just some fall leaves here. But when you're using the turbulence effect, it's very important to really, you want your footage to be static, because the way it's going to kind of smear the footage around, if it has any secondary movement like just playing through the footage, it's not going to give as desirable of a result. So what I recommend doing on your footage, in this case, I'm just going to right click on my footage and go to time, and I'm just going to select freeze frame just to freeze this footage, essentially treating it like a 360 image. So with that footage selected now, I'm going to come over to Effect, we're going to come down here to Metal, and we're going to select the Mantra VR Turbulence Effect. And immediately we're not going to see any difference, but if we come over here to Progress and start increasing this, we're going to really see the full effect of the Mantra VR Turbulence Effect. And you can see just how abstract and smeary this looks now. And we've got to check this out in 360. So let's dive into the Metal Globe preview, and you can see the result we're already getting, which really is a sight to behold here with this particular effect. And of course, we can keyframe that progress to kind of go through and change over time. And you can see we can change the direction as well. So with the force direction, we can change how this looks. I'm going to zoom in here. Another thing we can adjust, not only with the velocity, and that's going to kind of control how much force is being applied to the turbulence effect, but the actual turbulence itself. You can see we're getting some nice kind of little hooks, kind of extra swirl smears on this. If that's a little too much, you can dial those back, and it's going to be a little bit more of like a paint type smear, almost more of a liquid. And you can kind of see how that looks as we bring that down. So it really gives it a unique look. I think the more you increase it, it kind of matches that Van Gogh with the little extra hooks. And if you bring it down, it's more of like a liquid paint effect. But again, we can also use this on flat footage. So let's take a look at that. What I've got here in this shot is this Jeep driving through the water. And obviously this footage is moving. And what I would like to have happen is kind of like midway through this, when the water kind of splashes up, it kind of essentially changes the entire shot to kind of become that turbulence paint-like look. So how can we do that with the footage moving? Again, because the turbulence effect is going to work best on static footage. But I'm going to walk you guys through the process of how I actually like applying this to video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a place right here kind of where I want the effect to start. And I'm just going to select my footage, and I'm going to hit Control-Shift-D or Command-Shift-D on a Mac. And you're going to see it's going to split the clip and make 2 different copies. So we've essentially just split that clip. So the idea with this is we're going to apply the turbulence effect to the second half of this clip. I'm going to select it. I'm going to right click, come up here to time, and we're going to select freeze frame. So we're going to freeze that. And now with that selected, we're going to come over here to effect. We're going to go down to metal, and we're going to select the Mantra VR turbulence effect. So now we need to keyframe the turbulence effect. So kind of that paint flow change on this footage. So I'm going to keyframe the progress here, 1 keyframe there. We'll move down here in time a little bit. And I'm just going to increase the progress here. And one thing I do want to do with this, I need to change this to actually be rectilinear. So I'll change it to be flat. Again, because it will be 360 off the default. So we can kind of come back through here and kind of see how this is changing on our footage. And I want this to kind of go the direction of the water. So I kind of want it to go up in this direction here. So I'm going to change the force direction, just kind of where that's pointing up in that direction. And I'm going to turn the turbulence really down quite a bit. Let's come back over here to the full end result. And you can see kind of what that looks like. That may be a little too intense, so let me drag this down just a little bit. I kind of like how that looks. We can kind of still see some remnants of the original footage. I'm just going to hit U on the keyboard to show me the keyframes we have now for the turbulence effect. And what I want to do is I'm going to select them, and I'm going to hit F9 on this first one to make that an easy ease keyframe. And I want to select both keyframes, and then I want to select the graph editor so we can see them. And what I want to do is I want to have this be really front heavy. So I'm going to move this over and pull this other handle down. So basically a lot of the effect happens really quickly in the beginning. That's going to give us the best result for that to kind of come on very quickly and just kind of slow down. It's also going to look the most realistic with kind of a liquid when it moves. So we're going to come through here and we do a quick RAM preview of this. We're just going to see what this looks like so far. And now we can see the transition from the normal footage to the turbulence effect, kind of emulating that paint-like appearance. And if that's a little too abrupt of a change, I actually like kind of how the way that looks in this. But if you want it to kind of gradually fade, what you can do is just take your bottom copy of footage and drag it out a little bit. And on this top copy, I'm going to hit T on the keyboard for opacity. And we'll do a keyframe there at the very beginning. Set that at 0. And we'll just move down a few quick frames and have this transition. So we get just a little bit more of a fade type effect when that occurs. And that can smooth that out just a little bit more if you need to. And finally, guys, one other thing I want to mention about Mantra VR before I leave you is that it does have a node-based panel that you can use on 360 and regular flat footage as well. And so you can see I've got some 360 footage here. I come over to Effect, and I'm going to select Metal, and I'm just going to apply Mantra VR. And you're going to see we can toggle the panel here. And that's going to open up this dockable panel that we can use. And you can see it's got different controls we can apply, effects we can apply directly inside of this panel. And what's really nice is it has these presets that we can kind of preview over here. And then if you like one of these, you can just go ahead and select it and apply that to your 360 footage. And it'll quickly apply it and takes all the paint out of that. So I'm going to go ahead and close up this panel. And you can now see we have that applied to our footage. And it already has looping animations keyframed into it. So it takes all the paint out of adding that to your footage if you want to use one of those presets. All right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this overview of Mantra VR inside of After Effects. This has been Charles Yeager with Metal. Thanks for watching.